This lesson is in partial fulfillment of the following student learning objectives. By the end of the semester, students will be able to demonstrate knowledge of the origins and historical significance of several important styles of American music. They will also be able to recognize, identify, and explain the importance of several historically influential pieces of music of varying styles. The Blues, Part 1, an overview. Some say that all American popular music evolved from the blues. Blues has had a continuing influence on the development of all styles of American music, including jazz, gospel, country, rock, and rap. Even EDM has been influenced by the blues. The beginning of David Guetta's Hey Mama is based on a blues song.
Be my woman, girl, I'll be your man. Be my woman, girl, I'll be your man. Be my woman, girl, I'll be your man. Get this $100 in your hand. Be my woman, girl, I'll be your
Yes, I be your woman. Yes, I be your baby. Yes, I be whatever that you tell me when you're ready.
A short history of the blues.
It all began in the Mississippi Delta. Although blues music had, at first, unacknowledged roots in the American South, it went on to greatly influence today's music throughout America and the rest of the world. The arrival of 20th century blues music, directly connected to slavery and the African American experience, was a critical turning point in the music industry, impacting American culture and causing the emergence of numerous major genres in the 20th century.
Long before the first emergence of any popular blues genres, slave music expressed the sorrows of the African American experience. At the turn of the 20th century, black communities in the South continued the tradition of musical expression through performing in small shacks all around the Delta. It was in these juke joints that famous blues artists such as Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, and Son House first performed. Through the sharecropping system, many black field workers were living undesirably and decided to use music, with its roots in the slave experience, as a way out. In the 1890s, an infamous pest known as the boll weevil crossed the Rio Grande and invaded plantations in the southern United States, destroying more than 3 million bales of crop a year. Communities were forced to move north, bringing their culture with it. The early forms of blues began to spread north as well, and were popularized on a small scale in urban areas such as Detroit and Chicago. B.B. King was one of the very first to incorporate the electric guitar in what is known today as Chicago blues. The movement sparked national recognition of other subgenres and styles of blues, broken off into either country or city blues. Although the movement had taken off in America, what truly gave blues music recognition was the European adaptation of American blues. European musicians fell in love with the sounds of American Delta blues. Many bands began popularizing blues music internationally by covering original Delta blues songs. What the bands had unknowingly begun was to live in music history forever. European bands toured the United States playing covers of Delta blues songs most of America had never heard before. Legendary bands such as Cream, The Animals, and Led Zeppelin were playing electric versions of old country blues music written by Leadbelly, Son House, Robert Johnson, and many others. European bands were the first to truly popularize blues music in America, and so, blues music gave birth to rock and roll, still a thriving genre in today's music industry.
As European bands continued popularizing the blues in America, Desire from the people to discover the origin of the blues arose. Many original Delta blues artists disappeared during the start of the European invasion, but re-emerged after World War II. Famous blues musicians such as Skip James and Son House were pulled out of self-exile to perform for enormous crowds everywhere. Soon, the originators of the blues were getting their much-deserved credit.
Paralleling the rediscovery of original Delta blues was the start of the civil rights movement in America. J.B. Lenoir was, like many people of the time, an African American dedicated to the achievement of rights for his people. Lenoir was one of the very first to write songs protesting the treatment towards blacks of the day. Many musicians of the time found their roots through Lenoir's music and went on to become popular peace musicians. In 1967, Lenoir was turned away from a hospital due to racial prejudice after being in a car accident. Tragically, he died soon after in his home from internal bleeding. And although he did not live to become a nationally popular blues artist, his legacy lived on through his work and all civil rights sympathizers. His music directly influenced the fight for civil rights in America. It helped change American culture and shape the way society is today.
Slow down, slow down. Let me step on board. I just wanna ride your train just before I go.
Lenoir's civil rights and Vietnam protest songs gave way to bands like Buffalo Springfield and artists including Bob Dylan, who promoted a new generation of protest.
And if I had you by my side, you would mean so much to me.
Throughout the remainder of the 20th century and into the 21st, blues music continued to grow, expanding into many modern genres. Slave music, which directly evolved into the blues, brought on the emergence of gospel, rap, hip-hop, R&B, and soul music into the world. Early rhythm and blues also contributed to the creation of funk, boogie, and numerous variations of jazz. The biggest influence blues had on the music industry is still shown today through rock and roll music. Hundreds of bands incorporated the electric trademark of rock and also integrated synonymous instrumentation, lyrics, and choruses of blues music. Rock and roll was directly influenced by early blues and gave the biggest push for the development of numerous subgenres. These genres evolved and developed through the years and include rockabilly, psychedelic rock, punk, ska, grunge, metal, and indie rock, to name a few. Amazingly, all of these genres can be traced back to Delta blues of the early 20th century.
We make everything alright, my honey, don't.
Simply stating that American culture and music were heavily impacted by the blues is a complete understatement. The blues provided for the transformation of society through civil rights participation and the development of musical genres. Even modern blues is popular and booming, with artists like Jack White and the Black Keys topping the charts and winning multiple Grammy Awards. And although music has changed, the true meaning of the blues remains the same. B.B. King, now 87 years old, is still playing up to 100 shows a year. Blues music acted as a turning point in the American music industry, promoting the evolution of new music and helping shape American culture.
You got me, baby. You got me, darling. You got me where you want me, baby. Girl, I know you are satisfied.
The blues began in the Mississippi Delta around the turn of the 20th century. This style of blues is known as rural blues. Rural blues were almost always performed by male singers accompanying themselves on guitar. Some of the subject matter included sadness and longing. The majority of rural blues musicians performed in order to earn a living, often traveling from town to town. Because the blues were played in places that were gambling establishments or prostitution houses or places where there was bootlegging, it had a very negative reputation. In the early part of the 20th century, automation of farm equipment, drought, cotton crop devastation by an insect called the boll weevil, and racial discrimination made it very difficult to find work or make a living wage in the South. This led to the Great Migration, in which the African American community moved north to urban areas where there were boundless employment opportunities. Many people settled in Chicago, and they took the blues with them. It began to evolve into a new style called the urban blues. Urban blues were usually performed by a female singer, typically backed by either a solo piano or a small jazz combo. As the blues began to be performed in larger and larger venues, electric guitars and microphones were used. In contrast to the male rural blues musicians, female urban blues singers presented themselves as refined, glamorous celebrities. These singers were stars, and they dressed lavishly with jewels, fancy gowns, feathers. Their live performances offered their audiences a sense of luxury and opulence. Subject matter was often about men or relationships. Characteristics of the blues. Many blues songs include call and response between the singer and an instrument. Another characteristic of the blues is something called the blue note. A blue note is a pitch that is in between notes. It starts above or below the intended pitch and quickly slides down or up to it. We hear a lot of this in contemporary music.
I wanna save you, ooh, but I'm not God. I wanna heal you, but that's not my job. I wanna pick you up above the ground and lift you high.
The blues are always in quadruple meter. Blues songs have 3 phrases with an AAB structure. Each phrase contains 4 groups of 4 beats. These groupings are called measures, or in this case, bars. Because of the 3 phrase and 4 measure form, the form of the blues is called 12-bar form. In the A section, a melody line and text are presented. The repeat of the A is exactly the same as the first phrase. The next phrase is B. It presents a contrasting melody and text, often containing a kind of punchline. Blues songs have only 3 chords. If you could play these 3 chords on a keyboard instrument or a string instrument such as guitar, banjo, or ukulele, you can play the blues. Here's a typical blues accompaniment played by guitar. Here is Lost Your Head Blues, sung by Bessie Smith and recorded in 1926. As you listen, see if you can hear the AAB form, listen for some blue notes, and note the call and response.
I was with you, baby, when you did